Hello and welcome to the Feminine Millionaire Show. I'm your host, Polly Alexander. I'm a success coach, intuitive healer, and a passionate creative. And I believe that we all have the power to manifest magic and miracles into our life. If creating success in a spiritual, feminine, and joyful way is your goal, this show is for you. You'll understand how to overcome your past, bring your soul's greatest gifts to the world, and up-level your income, impact, joy, and happiness. Let's all rise together. Hello and welcome to episode 117 of the Feminine Millionaire Show. Now, today's episode is a little bit different. I'm actually sharing with you an excerpt from my Heal Your Way to Success webinar, which happened this week. This is a live excerpt where I talk about the 7 life stages that you can do healing work in that actually have the power to help you unlock your patterns, what's showing up for you in life, and your results in money, in relationships, in manifesting. These 7 life stages, when we heal the pieces within them, and by the way, healing is a lifetime's journey, so don't put pressure on yourself to get it all done or do it all completely or perfectly. But when we heal these pieces, these are the game changers in our life. These shift those negative and uncomfortable emotions and change on a very deep level what we believe is possible for us. So I hope you find today's excerpt enlightening, and if you would like to go deeper, I invite you to go to polyalexander.com/healbeautifully for details of the 7-week healing journey I'm going to be guiding a small group of you on live this autumn. You can read more about this journey. It's truly a special experience that will change how you feel. And if it calls you, I would love to support you. But for now, listen to this excerpt and open up the world of healing in a deeper way. I've come up with this healing journey, which I tested back in 2020 with amazing results. So I developed that there's 7 key stages we can focus on to heal. And I'm going to share those with you today. And as I do, I'm going to talk a bit about some of the things that can show up in each stage. Okay, the first stage is pre-birth and pregnancy. So this is when your soul decided to incarnate into human form and transition into your body. Now, we could talk a lot about that. That's another webinar. But your soul decided what it wanted to experience in this lifetime. And so it chose your parents. It was like, they are ideal for what I want to grow and experience. And the things that can play into how you're formed at this stage are things like, what kind of a relationship did your parents have at the time? You know, was it tempestuous? Was it safe and comforting? Were you planned? Or were you an accident? You know, maybe you were long awaited. Perhaps they'd been trying for years and years. So there was a lot of pressure and a lot of anticipation and expectation. The environment during pregnancy, meaning where you were. So, for example, my mother, when she was in her mother's womb, so when her mother was pregnant with her, it was during World War II. And so she was pregnant and she was in the air raid shelters in the UK. So if you imagine my mother as a little baby absorbing her mother's fear with bombs dropping around, that was the environment that she would have unconsciously picked up when she was growing. And my mother had a lot of fear in her lifetime. And I believe that part of it was from that time that she absorbed in her mother's womb. And then the mother's own mental health and emotional health, that impacts the baby. So if the mother is stressed out or worried about money or got lots of other kids to take care of, and oh no, it's another one, That's going to be felt by the baby. And then things like, what was the birth like? Was it painful? Were there complications? Was the baby separated from the mother at birth? And this can lead to guilt and a feeling of disconnection from the mother or abandonment if they're separated early on. So these are some of the things that we can heal around this stage of life. All right. So next, I'm going to call this family of origin patterns. So, as I said, we incarnate into our family for our soul growth and spiritual growth, but we also incarnate into our family to heal the patterns. So we're like, oh my gosh, this pattern of poverty, I've got to come and change this. I'm going to pick that family where it's really rooted in that life's a struggle and we never have enough money. And I'm going to incarnate there and I'm going to change the pattern. And you inherit templates and beliefs from your mother and your father and both ancestral lines going back 7 generations. So your grandmother, grandfather on both sides, great-grandparents, and so on. And kind of things that can come through here, and I've seen this impact people so powerfully, are things like poverty, struggle, family secrets, things that are hidden that the family's ashamed of, shame, conflict, bonding, communication, abuse, alcoholism, addiction. And also, you're going to be inheriting significant events the family went through, like divorce, conflict, maybe loss of business, moving countries, war, separation. And then also things like power patterns, power and control. Like, was there a very dominating father figure who was controlling? Did the woman feel disempowered? These are the kind of big patterns that we can incarnate in. And as we dive more deeply into our healing journeys, we quite often find, when we have access to this knowledge or information, that it is a generational pattern that's been passed down. And we might even see it in our siblings. We might even notice that we're changing, but we see our siblings still in the old patterns. Okay. And then ancestral lines. Okay. So recent research has shown that we can carry unresolved issues from our parents and ancestors, in part as a result of trauma. So they've shown in recent research that the children of people that were in the concentration camps during the Holocaust are more easily traumatized than others, regardless of their upbringing. So they were not there themselves, but their parents were, and it's been passed down in the DNA. And other research has shown that a family or a group who experience starvation will impact later generations through their altered DNA. So perhaps you had ancestors who went through the Irish Great Famine in the mid-1800s, and you have this hoarding towards food, or you always feel like there's never enough, or you feel territorial about it. Or you have a dysfunctional relationship with food. It's really, really interesting what can show up here. Okay, the first year of life. So you chose your family, you made it here. And then you were like, oh my God, what am I doing here? So some of you are going to be like, what is this place? I've just come from spirit, where everything is pure and truth and love and beauty and wisdom. And what is going on here? And this first year of life is the most pivotal time in our human growth. This first year is the most pivotal time in our human growth. So the quality of that first year of experience for you, this is when the key wounds happen around attachment, around bonding, around your relationship with the masculine and feminine, around abandonment, safety, guilt, even things like, did your family hope for a boy? And then you arrived and you were a girl. Or were you a much wanted girl that was born into a family of boys? So there's a lot of expectation on you. Who cared for you in that first year of life? Were the family stresses going on? Did families experience bereavements, money stresses, health challenges? Did your mother have postnatal depression? So all of these really interesting things can come in, and you don't need to be able to remember everything, right? I don't know about you, but I don't really remember my first year of life. Although what's very interesting, when I look back at the photos, I have an album my mother made for me of that first year of life. I'm not at home, otherwise I would show you a picture. And in the first month, when I look back at the pictures of me a baby, I am crying and miserable in every photo. I don't know if they just couldn't get a good picture of me smiling or looking like relaxed, or if I just was never relaxed, so it's an accurate portrayal. But I'm like in every photo. And I like to think that was the sign. I was like, oh my God, where have I come to? What am I doing? And when I lead people in meditation and healing, quite often, because we go to a deep subconscious level, they will be shown things, or they'll feel things, or they get images or thoughts of what that time was like. So it is possible to access that time without you consciously knowing about it. Okay, childhood. This is the one we're all familiar with, right? Because what's great is it's talked about a lot more now. There's a lot more open dialogue through social media and the media about the power childhood has to shape our current experiences. So childhood, a lot of this is when we form our ideas about ourselves and our worth. So this is when we learn to form our own opinions, we learn to express our voice, we learn to be heard or not, or we learn to keep quiet in order to be safe and loved and approved of. We learn to keep quiet and hide our opinions so that parents will love us and praise us. We learn to adapt our behavior so that we get praise and love. And so we sort of shape ourselves according to our environment. If our environment is unsafe or a parent is highly critical, we learn to shut down and adapt what we share and how we share according to that. If we're able to express our emotions and share them freely, and we're able to cry and be happy and joyful and exuberant, then we learn safety with expressing ourselves. But that's actually fairly rare. Quite often we might have been told not to cry or not to be too much. I remember being told off for laughing too much by my friend's mum. We were, early teens, and we used to laugh all the time. And she basically told us off for being too happy. She was like, will you stop laughing and having fun? And, then you're like, it's bad to have fun. It's shameful to have fun. We start to absorb these messages. Okay. So a lot of things are shaped in childhood, and we're often going back there to shift things. All right. Teenage years. That's the next stage. And I really like to separate this out with healing, because I have found that this is where key wounds around belonging are established and fitting in. It's a time when we want to belong and fit in, and we start to become aware of ourselves in relation to others. And this is when we can start to feel like we're not enough. We don't have the right things. We don't look the right way. We're different. This is when a lot of bullying can happen. And our performance at school becomes even more important for our future, for exams. There can be a lot of pressure on us. Maybe we've got too much responsibility, or maybe we victimized and blamed ourselves. And we've got the soul level and the personality level, right? The soul level is like, I'm amazing. I'm a being of God. I am wise beyond belief. I'm connected to source. I'm always loved and supported. And then the personality goes, I'm not enough. I'm wrong. I always make mistakes. I never get it right. I'm never going to get there. So it's important to distinguish between the two. During the teenage years, maybe you made decisions about your subjects at school or your university choice in order to please the family. Oh, my family want me to be a doctor or a lawyer. Okay, I'd better go down that route. Or that's how I'm safe. That's how I am respected in society. That's what I should do. And this is also where boundaries are formed, right? This is when we test our boundaries, toddler years and teenage years. This is when we start to learn what can I do? How much freedom do I have? And something to think about is, were you allowed to form your own opinions at this point? Were you valued and respected? Or were you being controlled and shut down? Interesting pieces come in during the teenage years. So that's the teenage years. And then adulthood. Now, although most things are, well, this is really, really important to share with you. So in adulthood, a lot of what we experience in the events that we experience are replaying of unhealed wounds from childhood. And they keep playing until the root cause has been healed. So have you found yourself in a situation you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this again. Like, I can't believe I've been rejected again. Or I can't believe like I've been betrayed again. Or I can't believe I'm in this dynamic again. It can show up in intimate relationships, but it can also just show up in life experiences. And you're like, oh God, I'm here again. And that's always a signpost that you haven't healed the original core wound. So it keeps coming up again in an attempt to be healed. It keeps replaying and replaying and replaying. So in adulthood, we can accumulate experiences, and the older we are, the more we rack up. So things like divorce, things around family, so miscarriage, abortion, loss of a child, or fertility challenges, things around money, so debt, financial struggle, maybe fraud, being underpaid, not knowing how to manage money. All sorts of wounds can come up. And then you've obviously got relationship wounds, divorce, loss, all kinds of wounds there. And I believe that there's a value in being able to forgive ourselves and to shift the energy around these wounds. Although this isn't the origin, I think it's also important to be able to let go of some of these wounds that we've experienced, to find the lessons and the gifts, and to release the negative emotions like shame or guilt or fear that they triggered. So for a lot of people that are attracted to my community, they're here to do something important for the world. And as I said, it doesn't have to look like being a healer or a coach or a therapist. It can show up in many different ways. In fact, any profession can have a healing purpose to it, can have a soul purpose to it, and can make an impact on the world. So I believe that we also can do healing on our purpose and mission in this lifetime. So a lot of the time, this involves work around visibility. So you might know what you're here to do, or you're here to do more of, but fears get in the way. And the fears cause you to procrastinate. So you know what you need to do, but you're just not finding time for it. You're not prioritizing it. You can't get focus on it, or you keep self-sabotaging and finding things come up every time you go to do it. I know this. I've been through every single one of these on my journey. I always remember the first time I did a live on Instagram, I don't know, like 7 years ago or something. I was avoiding it, avoided it for 3 years. Finally, I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I set up my little tripod, put my phone on it, went live for the first time, and the phone fell off and smashed on the floor. Such was my resistance and fear. I had to go and get the phone repaired before I could carry on. My first 7 webinars that I did, they had tech issues. So you couldn't actually hear me, I think, for the first 3 or 4 people. Luckily, there were only like 2 people on each time. And they would be like, we can't hear you. And I'd be trying to work out why. It took like 7 goes before I had a technically successful webinar. So like, really, your journey can't be any more disastrous than mine. And I'm still here. And I'm still here doing the work 9 years later, I think now. So a lot of fears can come up around being visible, especially if you're doing spiritual work. A lot of fears that it's wrong. Fears from past lives where you were a witch, where you had this kind of wisdom, but people were not ready for your message. They weren't ready for your gifts, and you were tortured, or what's the word when somebody, you were brought into disrepute. You were basically restricted from your society. You were exiled from your village or your society for doing this work when the world wasn't ready for it. When I'm doing healing with people around this, I'll often see like people in Roman or Greek times as orators being stoned, like their message wasn't welcome then, it was too advanced for the time, or the ruling powers, the governments, they were not ready for this. And so they would send people to bring the speaker into disrepute. And we often have to do healing around those things so that people can speak their truth in this lifetime without fear of being attacked or without fear of being judged. Also, healing on your mission in this lifetime or your next phase of your mission can involve really believing in yourself and believing that you have something to offer. So it's also a self-esteem piece, that you are enough as you are, that you don't have to be further ahead, you don't have to be wiser, you don't have to know more, you don't have to be really different. That's something people often say to me, but how am I different? You're different because you're you. Nobody else has your unique mix of life experience, of ways of seeing things, your personality, your energy. Even if you were saying exactly the same thing as somebody else, it'd be received in a unique way to you. And helping people really believe in themselves and believe in the value of their gifts, get over their fears around being visible, and also pieces around safety, that it's safe to do this kind of work, that you'll be safe when you trust where you're being guided to go. So, and I believe that on the healing journey, healing around our work in the world is a really important part of this as well. We can heal on ourselves, and we must heal on how we're here to contribute, because we're all here to contribute to the world in some way with our gifts. And that's part of allowing the flow of abundance to operate, allowing the flow of money to go towards us, from us, and out to others. So if you enjoyed hearing about these 7 life stages, well, my invitation to you is to join me on a journey, a live healing journey, where I take you through these life stages and we do deep, powerful healing each week. It is a live journey with me. There's no homework. Everybody loves that. You show up and you receive and you process and you release live on the call. And if you can't make the calls live, it works exactly the same on the recordings, which you have access to. And the more you shed these layers, the more you let go of the generations of old trauma, the old family stories, the wounds from childhood, the more you will be able to live and feel joyful, abundant, free, at peace and fulfilled. We'll be clearing the root causes of patterns like self-sabotage, fear, overwhelm, frustration, low self-worth, self-criticism, hiding, self-doubt. And childhood wounds and patterns run deep in all of us, from big to small, keeping us showing up as less than we're destined to be. Most of them we aren't even fully aware of. They're buried so deep. But when you clear these patterns and you find a way of getting access to them and releasing them, things will start to get easier. You'll become more confident and stop worrying about being judged by others. Rejection and failure won't throw you off course anymore, and you'll bounce back more quickly. You'll feel safe to take bigger risks and make bolder moves. Your intuition will grow stronger, giving you deep inner faith and trust in yourself and your decisions. You'll feel positive and excited about your future and what's possible for you, and you'll effortlessly attract money, new opportunities, new clients, recognition, abundance, and love into your life. So I invite you to go to pollyalexander.com/heal beautifully. Enrollment is just for a limited time until the 23rd of October, and we kick off at the end of this month. You can read all about people's experience on this journey and understand the power it could have for you over at the link in the show notes. I look forward to supporting you. See you again next week. Bye for now.